Hello dear Ronins, welcome to Ronin Hood. Today it will be a review about the SilverdragonFly from Murasame. The brand, model, seller. It's a French and Chinese brand. It's a French brand and it's forged in China. You can see here a few pictures of the shinken. It has in my opinion, great authenticity in the Koshirae on the looks. It's in 1095 carbon steel with a nagasa, they say, is 71 centimeters, so it's 28 inches. Sorry, 1.52. It's 12.8 centimeters point of balance from the tsuba, and you have the fushikashira and tsuba in copper, and they say the length of the tsuka is 28 centimeters, 2 mekugi, and it's 1165 grams without saya for almost 900 euros. Now the unboxing. My first impression about this brand is authenticity in the choice of the looks, the Koshirae, on the color, on different pieces, and of course I really appreciate the ansame kuroro, like the model araki from KATANA Mart. Here you have a ansame kuroro saya. So the shinonome is really nice, even is I think with artificial silk. So authenticity is my first impression, and now we start the review. It was a complex sword for me to analyze and to make a review with. Maybe one of the most complicated one, because there are many different aspects with, I would say, different impression from my experience and my way of practicing. So this authenticity on the Koshirae and the beautiful aspects, we will see from my perspective if they are as useful than beautiful. So here you can see the almond. It's a really visible almond, beautiful almond, and it's a brown ito sword, and you have brown hon koguchi. Now measurements. So it's without Niku, 1095 carbon steel. You can see over there where is the Niku geometric form, how it is it with or without. With a nohi swords, it's a weight of 1104 grams. It's without groove, a shinogi zokuri, so it's a full blade, yorimune type ikue type, and the point of balance is 13.4 centimeters from the tsuba. So I think it will make a good, correct balance blade with the weight in the middle or in the point of cut, between middle and point of cut. So I think it's what I will appreciate. So you can see here the shinogi zukuri blade. Now the first problem was that the kashirae was moving after 5 months of training and 1 month with many trainings every week. So really intense practicing for a month and 5 months for just practicing a little bit. So it's moving, there is like no glue, but I was able to finish the review with, and the seller I sent it back at the end of the review to the seller, and he will rewrap it with a really famous craftsman in France called Workshop of the Japanese Sword. So they are really great craftsmen, and that's nice because I wanted the ito to be fine for next practice. And it's not with ishigami first that explain why the ito is moving, because I had to refix it to finish the review, like I've shown you before, and it's like polyester, and I thought it was real silk, so I was surprised from this. And because the ito is not enough tight, so the craftsman and the seller will fix that problem. The menuki are a little bit moving too, but I finished the review like this, with this ito like this. I would say the fact that it's synthetical is maybe something that I would appreciate, something that is not synthetical, a real silk, for this kind of middle class sword. The samegawa is white but not premium. It's a beautiful one. I'm okay even when it's not premium samegawa, so it doesn't bother me for this point. Menuki are a little bit moving a little bit because of the ito, but I was able to practice. It's happening when the ito is not enough tight. So both menuki were moving a little bit. With time, many swords from first class, like practicals, or middle class like this, it's moving a little bit when we practice a lot with shinken and cutting test. Mekugi, it was really difficult for me to take off the second one, so the seller was able to remove it because I wanted to take the measurements of the copper pieces, tsuba, fushi, kashirae. So next time when he will send me back the sword, I will be able to take off this time with a better tools to take off the two mekugis like him, because he had better tools than me and experience, and I will be able to have the measurements of the copper pieces. So the tsuba is 7.7 on 6.7 centimeters. It's a really beautiful tsuba representing a silver dragonfly, a dragonfly symbol of bravery for samurai. So this is the theme of the shinken, because you have silver dragonfly on fushi, kashirae, menuki and tsuba. It's a beautiful one, but already the feeling is that it's heavy, a heavy material that is more heavy than iron or any metal alloy that you can find sometimes on tsuba and fushi, kashirae. The yabaki is kind of classic. I think this is brass, and it's nice, but it's kind of classic, like every shinken that you can find between first class and middle class. The motohaba is 3.05 centimeters, and the motokasane is 6.75 millimeters. This indicates that it will be a tough blade, difficult to bend, but it will be heavy blade. Nohi heavy blade. Sakihaba 2.2 centimeters. And sakikasane 4.3 millimeters. So there is no so much digressivity between motokasane and sakikasane that indicates that the blade will be correctly balanced, in my opinion. And here it's the first kokisaki that we have. This is a little kisaki, but it fits well with the entire picture of the sword. It's a Sanbonsugi Shoji Amon. It's a beautiful one, really visible, more visible than the Araki from KATANA mod, for example, but we will make later the versus between these both swords and brand from Europe. Nagasa is 71.2 centimeters, almost perfectly my size, so that's nice. I made the measurements with two kind of measurements, one without the tsuba and one with the tsuba, and it was exactly the same for sori. Sori is 1.8 centimeters, and for nagasa. I was not able to take off the tsuba, but I was able to take this kind of measurements without the tsuba. Length 27.1 centimeters, thickness most of the time 2.8 centimeters, and width 3.45 to 3.7 centimeters. Really comfortable tsuka, shape of tsuka, and the grip of the tsuka is really comfortable, and I think not just for some guy of my size, but even for someone who is taller, like 1 meter 75, 1 meter 80 centimeters, it's a really suitable grip and really enjoyable for practice. The edge is razor sharp. It's a really nice razor sharp edge. We'll talk about the paper test for seeking if the blade is really razor sharp. We'll talk about that later. The Kurigata Shitodome. Kurigata is really beautiful, but the Shitodome were not fixed when I was unboxing the shinken. So for that I was a little bit disappointed, because for middle class swords I would appreciate that Shitodome were already fixed, and I don't like to take the risk to not make it good because I'm not a professional craftsman. The saya is really nice. This is one of the great points of this shinken. This is a really beautiful work, and it's really clean koyaguchi. The finishing of the work and the touch, the way it suits really fine when you make your noto or you are drawing out the swords, no kyuchi. The koyaguchi is really well finished, and it suits and it feels as good, almost as good as a tozando iaido, for example. So we are really close, and for that I think there is a good work on the saya. So clean koyaguchi with buffalo horn, kurigata the same, brown buffalo horn, and kojiri, of course, also. So it's a really well protected shinken if you want to practice battodo, even it's not made for battodo because it's really heavy shinken. For me, for example, the kojiri is really nice, but I will try battodo because I was feeling comfortable with that. So it will be protected by the buffalo horn. Sageo is artificial silk. This is a point that I was a little bit disappointed. I would prefer a Japanese sageo made in Japan, or something that is better quality, even with something that can be artificial, like polyester, better polyester, because after 5 months you can see there it has been a bit scratched everywhere, and it's not evolving the good way with time of practice. So for practitioner, this kind of sageo artificial polyester is not so nice. It's kind of the same quality than a Ronin Dojo Pro, and it's absolutely not the same budget. So I was disappointed on the sageo. The Shinonome, like I said before, is authentic in my point of view. It's kind of polyester too, I think. It's not real silk, but I really appreciated this kind of authenticity, classic, sober Shinonome from the brand Murasame. You can almost touch it through the video and make your own impression about the colors and the touch. Murasame Silver Dragonfly measurements: so nagasa 71.1 centimeters, nohi, no groove, shinogi zukuri, carbon steel 1095 carbon steel, weight 1104 grams, point of balance 12.4 centimeters, and tsuka shape aishi, inerimaki no ishigami, yorimune type ikue, kokisaki, little kisaki, and ansame kuroro with ray skin for the saya. So now we have finished the measurements, and we start with paper test, cutting with both arms. The cutting paper test has been made after omote cutting test. So we see that it's cutting pretty well on paper. It's getting through with the 30 or 45 degrees angle cut of a very sharp edge test. On all type of sections of paper, like small section of paper, large or extra large section of paper. It's giving an indication, because when you do that with like a very sharp edge, smaller is the paper, more difficult it is to cut sometimes. And here it's getting really easily going through the paper. These are like normal type of test with paper. And now the razor sharp test with paper. I'm not making a slice movement of cut. I'm just pushing with a 90 degrees angle cut, and it's just getting through. So this is enjoyable to see that it is really razor sharp, in my opinion, on what I know. And even with smaller section, it's getting correctly through the paper. So it's better than very sharp. Now we will apply the same test with the other hand, so my left hand, and making a slice movement of cut on paper. This is a kind of thick paper, like for anything. It's A4, but if you have some paper that is less thick, it will be a correct indication for your edge, a better indication for the edge, because less thick it is, better it is for testing your blade. So the 30-45 degrees angle cut with the left hand, no problem. It's totally getting through, no effort. It's just a bit, my hand is a little bit tired, my body is a little bit tired, because the copper, I already feel the copper in the tsuka, and it's like burning really fast my muscles, energy, and this is already the impression that I have just cutting paper, to let you know. Now we'll make the razor sharp test with paper with the other hand, and it's the exactly same result with this pushing on 90 degrees angle cut, the edge correctly aligned or almost correctly aligned is getting through the paper. Of course, you can do that with something that is less thick, like newspaper, which will be a better test. But I'm used to have this kind of paper, an office paper, A4. It's other for the paper test. Now indoor practice. We will see what's happening with drawing out the swords and making some cutting moves, and how the body reacts to the mass and weight distribution on this shinken. The first impression is that the swing is not enough loud, is too quiet for me, so I have difficulties to hear it. That's why it's interesting to make this test on inside practice, indoor practice, and you can hear that the swing is really shy, it's really quiet. I would say it's like more quiet than the araki from Yarino Hanzo. It's like, I would say, 30% on the louder nohi sword that I know. Nohi swords are not making so much noise with swing because there is no groove, but this one is really like really shy. So it's okay, but for me it's important because the hearings help me a lot to know if I'm correct on my edge alignment. So on my battodo movements, it's difficult to have a clear, loud swing, and of course with Tameshigiri too. Tameshigiri when I have my two hands on the sword. The other thing the other little problem for my touch and practice perception is that the swords have an extra weight on the tsuka, and this extra weight is the copper. I really feel a huge difference than with all the other shinken that I have before. It was not really easy to feel that on the first month, because I was just having a couple of minutes or tens of minutes every week. So I was not perceiving so clearly the fact that this extra weight is really difficult for the joints, for my waist, for example, for my shoulders, clavicle, thorax. It's like a bit too tight after the end of every moves, especially with double cuts. Double cuts with one hand or double cuts with two hands. This is definitely not a sword for battodo, I know it, but I was feeling it to practice with my three ways, Tameshigiri with two hands, batto with one hand, drawing out the swords with nuki-uchi, KATANA, or with niten. So I tried the three ways, but it was a bit difficult for my body. So I would say the problem is this copper that is really important, and that is an extra weight. Even the blade is well balanced, in my opinion. I would say really interestingly balanced, with a really good feeling. I can transfer easily to the point of cut. I'm not stuck in the tsuka like, in my opinion, incorrect balanced swords. I had these feelings, for example, with Araki from KATANA, but here, even it's correctly balanced, and the extra weight is like tight on my wrist, and it's a little bit painful sometimes on my wrist when I'm repeating and not taking enough rest, for example. So I would say, because it's heavy swords, the copper is giving a second problem to deal with if you want to have, for example, double cuts on Tameshigiri or double cuts on battodo. This is really perceptible, and I had to deal with that. So I was trying to not put too much power to preserve my joints, clavicle, thorax, shoulders, and waist. And now we will know what will happen outside with the cutting test. On battodo cuts, Tameshigiri cuts, niten ichiryu cuts. So the first feeling with simple cuts on Tameshigiri that blade is really nice. Nice, well balanced, and there is no overswing. You can easily, without too much power, stop the trajectory. Of course, it's razor sharp, so there is not any problems to get through the material. So this is a mugendachi. That day I was having 8 mugendachi and 4 gozamats, and I was not just making an evaluation of the shinken, I was also evaluating myself as a suemonogiri. So it was a Tameshigiri session and a suemonogiri session. Tameshigiri is evaluation of the blade and soulsmith, and a suemonogiri evaluation of myself. I tried things that were a little bit too difficult. It was too ambitious, but I tried to make the same that with Shinto from Anway, and that was my first double cuts with one head, drawing out the swords with nuki-uchi, with a mugendachi omote. So it was kind of really surprising to make it with some extra weight copper on the tsuka. So on that I was nicely surprised, but it was really tough and rough physically on the entire day of practice. All the simple cuts were really easy to make, like battodo, for example, simple cuts, like you just draw and cut with KATANA or nuki-uchi. For that, I think for a tough guy with 5-10 years of battodo practice and who got enough muscles and correct posture, is doable. Even, I repeat, it's sold like Tameshigiri swords, because you know that everything that is made in China is always for Tameshigiri swords. I mean, nohi swords. It's always from 1050 grams to 1350 grams. So in Japan, it's not like this. You can find for swordsmen, they used to practice battle with nohi swords, and they are like lighter weight. And I think it's doable with 1000 grams. You have other brand that has this kind of possible weights. That was my second Nukiuchi double cuts with these goza mats. So second good surprise. And it's get through the material. Even you can see it's really tough for me. My physical is getting to his limits. And next time I will make it, maybe do it differently with so heavy weights and not trying double cuts with one hand. It's a bit too much. I was feeling my limits, and it was physically really demanding. For what was the simple Tameshigiri cuts, nothing to say except that it was easy. Easy, simple. Of course, less power is necessary when you have a heavier mass. So I was just trying to have a correct posture, taking a rest, and continue my sue monogiri. So for double cuts with one hand, it was really difficult. The extra weight on the tsuka and the important weight were blocking my wrist on the second cut in the space, so I was not able to touch on the second move. And I think because I was tired, it was difficult for me to have a proper posture, because my body was a bit exhausted from the previous successful cuts. So it was difficult to have my double cuts, even in Tameshigiri. You will see that. For simple cuts, it was getting through like butter really easily, and the correct balance blade was making the work. With one head simple cuts, I was feeling okay, I was feeling good. You know me, I like battodo cuts with one hand. I feel comfortable, and I like knitting, so for me having one blade for one hand is the best. And for double cut, even in Tameshigiri, my angles were not really correct. My posture, because it's outside, is more difficult, were not really clean. I think I was really bothered by the extra weight of the copper, and it was like getting me difficulties to transfer correctly my mass without being caring so much about this a bit painful mass for the wrist. And I was trying again for having better angles, but I was having difficulties with double cuts. So I was trying to have a bit of rest on my muscles, getting back to a better proper position, repeating my angles, and this time in the last moment I had a double cut in Tameshigiri. So how I calculate my evaluation is really simple. I had 12 omotes, and I wanted to make 4 double cuts in battodo, double cut, 4 double cuts in Tameshigiri, and 4 double cuts in niten. So here I was trying to have my second double cut. In Tameshigiri, so I was repeating because the extra weight of the tsuka is not an excuse. I have to try my best. So I had this second double cut with this silver dragonfly. I don't count in my suemonogiri the simple cuts. In battodo or in Tameshigiri, I just don't count them. I missed this one because my foot was leaving the floor and I didn't extract the power from the ground correctly, so I had this one for correcting the one before. So I was on that paradox of this correct blade correctly balanced and this extra weight that was a little bit painful in the tsuka. So another try with double cuts in Tameshigiri, and the third double cut that go through this time. So for my evaluation for the moment I have 5 on 12 because 2 double in batto and 3 double in Tameshigiri. It could be better, they were not perfect, even on my first battodo double cut, but they go through, so I count them. So this ambivalence, this paradox of the correct balance sword and extra weight cover will make me feel like it was a sports car. A middle class sword is like a beginner sports car with 100 kilos on the back. So it was difficult sometimes to deal with that feelings, because it's more a feeling when you practice than a thinking of a rational thinking that okay, you have extra weight on the tsuka and you have a point of cut that is correctly balanced and you can transfer easily. No, it's a global picture. When you practice, you know that if you're a practitioner. And I was getting more confident now with my double cuts and trying again, and it was not working. Simple cuts, no problem. I tried this front cut for the first time and I stopped well before the peg, so it was interesting. Not perfectly, not in the middle, but it was my first front cut with omote, and because the blade is you can easily control it with simple cuts, there were not accident with peg or breaking the blade in the stand, so it was a nice try. And now Niten, my third time, and boom, I was totally impressed because it was the best cut that I ever did in Niten, better than Shinto. And I was, how this is possible? This is almost the end of the session, I'm really tired, my muscles are like exhausted, it's really physically demanding. I went a little bit maybe too far using this EV blade like the Bohi Shinto Anoe blade, because there is more than 100 grams of difference between them. But I was feeling to do it. Even I was missing some kind of cuts like this one, not enough power or not enough correct posture, but it was really working enough, or it was doable on Niten. It was tough, but it was doable. So I was really surprised, but the fact that Niten had the same result, 2 tries, 2 wins in Niten. So you will see the second win, we can say win because it's getting through in the first cut and the second. But my first double cuts in Niten this day was just better. So it's really surprising for a sword that has an extra weight like this. And the second one, so I was confused by this double impression of okay, this extra weight is really difficult and a bit painful for my joints, but it's well balanced and we can do many things. So I was stuck between these two feelings. I think this sword is really made for Tameshigiri, it's obvious. So simple cuts are the way to use it. But for me, you know me, I need to practice batto, or it doesn't make sense in my practice. So I like to make nuki-uchi or double cut with one hand, since Shinto improvement of my practice. And yes, I went a bit too far. I think for my muscles and joints, it's a bit too rough. But I was surprised that it was doable. I don't think I will do it next time with so much important weight, but it was interesting to try it. And you see the same results. It was heavier, but it was so successful than with the 985 grams Shinto. So I think this is really surprising. And of course the results are different than Araki from Katana Mart, so we will make the versus as soon as possible. We will see the difference between the two swords and what's happened. But if you already see you have seen the episode before Araki and you see this episode, you already know a bit what I think between them. And I finished with this simple cuts, minor cuts, with the little section of omote already cut on Tameshigiri. The purpose of this shinken, if we listen to the advices of the seller. So I was using a higher guard for having rest for my waist and joints. And it was more suitable to just start with kesagiri from a high guard and make simple cuts, precise cuts but simple on these little sections. And it was really enjoyable to stop a little bit big goals of double cuts in batto or Tameshigiri and just focus on simple things. So this razor sharp blade is really making the job pretty well. I mean, there is a difference of feeling when I was cutting with a very sharp edge, and the control, even for one hand cut like this, is pretty nice. It was not so difficult to control the end of the trajectory. And most of the time, with incorrect balanced blade, the weight is stuck in the tsuka, so I have to give more power to transfer to a thinner part of the blade that is not correctly forged, in my opinion. And this is creating overswing, because if I want to go through the material, I have to give too much power with incorrect balance swords where the weight is stuck on the tsuka. So here it's really nice because the blade is correctly forged. It's not perfect, but it's really correctly forged. And the only thing is this: at the end of the movement, the copper is like making tight on my waist and shoulders. So I have to not give too much power, the less as possible, to just go to the material and to finish the movement of cut without too much power to avoid to damage my joints. Especially because it's 6 degrees Celsius out there, so even with a good warm-up, it's really easy to get cooler in your body, and there you can be not okay with so much powerful movements. So it was a great, beautiful day with this new shinken, showing its possibilities, and obviously it was more enjoyable with simple Tameshigiri cuts than double cuts and double cuts with battodo. I would say my favorite one were simple cuts in Tameshigiri on the feelings and niten. Maybe because the second sword helped me a lot to balance this important weight of the 1100 grams. I'm not talking about the copper. So I would say yes, the best moment were like simple cuts on Tameshigiri and Niten moments for these swords. It was almost the end of the session. It was 10 to 12 hours preparation, getting through the forest and preparing everything and fixing everything at the end, get back to the dojo. So it was a really interesting session, and now I think I learned a lot, and next time I will be more careful with this kind of weight, and I won't try anymore. I think double cuts with one hand is physically too demanding, and I think it's better to preserve myself for a lighter sword. Maybe like 1,000 grams nohi if I find it, or a bohi sword. So you have seen all the tests, and now we will go to the conclusion with this new grid that I made, because it was really difficult to analyze and give notes for this shinken. This is a complex shinken. So for me the tsuka is maneuverability, so the shape is 8 on 10, size 8 on 10, grip 8 on 10, sturdiness materials 4 on 10, safety 7 on 10, design 8 on 10, quality materials 4 on 10, weight 3 on 10, healthy for waist joints 4 on 10, maneuverability for Tameshigiri simple cuts 8 on 10, good value for money 5 on 10, and maneuverability for Tameshigiri double cuts 6 on 10, simple cuts on battodo 6 on 10, double cuts in battodo 4 on 10, simple double cuts in niten 6 on 10. It was really important for me to talk about the positive aspect and the things that we could be improved. Like I think the ito could be with real silk, and we could make just iron for the kashirae and tsuba. The blade for me is a weight transfer, so it's nagasa 8 on 10, steel 8 on 10, sharpness 9 on 10, weight 5 on 10, balance 8 on 10, sturdiness 8 on 10, swing 5 on 10, amon 8 on 10, and good value for money 8 on 10. It's a good blade, in my opinion. So I separate the different part, the really important part of the shinken, to reveal the qualities and the thing that was for me to improve. Saya, battodo weight transfer rail. This is what is a saya for me, a battodo weight transfer rail. Safety is 8 on 10, grip 8 on 10, sturdiness material 7 on 10, design 8 on 10, quality material 7 on 10, weight 8 on 10, good value for money 8 on 10. The saya is really a part that is really that has been really nicely made. So the results for me, it's a practical plus 7 on 10. This is definitely a Tameshigiri swords. The note is 7 on 10 on Tameshigiri. It's enjoyable. Battodo note 4 on 10. For me, not good for waist or joints. Too heavy. Niten Ichiryu 6 on 10, difficult but doable. Best fitting practitioner size shinken weight 1m75, 1m80. Good value for money 7 on 10. This is the end of this review. Thank you for having watched this video. Thank you guys for having watched this episode. I hope you liked it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to let me comments on what you appreciate on this review, your question, your appreciation on the Koshirae of this shinken, what other thing you could expect for a review, information, kind of a test, whatever you think could be relevant. Stay focused, mind sharp and body healthy, and see you soon in the next episode in Ronin Hood.